Hello and welcome back. We're going to take a look at something new today. It's Dark City Games again. Dark City Games was kind enough to send me a preview copy of Operation Battleaxe. This is not out quite yet. It will be soon. So we're going to take a look at what we get in Operation Battleaxe and take a look at if there's been any changes since our look at there. If you'll remember a few episodes back, we looked at Guadalcanal, and of course this is Operation Battleaxe desert action. So we're going from the jungles to the desert in this one. So let's take a quick look at what we get. It's pretty much, you're going to get the same thing you got with Guadalcanal. So you're going to get a rule book, counter sheet, and a map. And we will start first with the rule book. Let's take a look at that. It is almost identical to Guadalcanal, which you would expect because this is the Combat Boots series. So not a lot of changes here, which is good. And there you have the game designer again, George Du, and he also did the board and the pieces. So let's dive right in. You'll note, like I said, it's the same sort of layout as Guadalcanal. Same unit types, not same unit types rather, but this same type of counters. So you'll still get that range and the movement, weapon type, your firepower, and your survivability. And again, if you'll remember, your firepower number is the number of d6s you'll roll when you're attacking. And survivability, that's the number of d6s you will roll when trying to defend against incoming fire. So again, the game sequence is the same as before. You will take turns, and there can be opportunity fire. Here we have an example of movement and terrain. And again, I'm going to remind everyone before I get too deep into this that this is a preview copy. So some of the things I point out may not be in the actual release copy. I think it's probably going to be fairly close, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So if I point out a problem or an error that I see, it may or may not be in the final version. And I will say, if you do find something that you have a question on, or something that doesn't make any sense, or you find an error even in the book, I highly recommend you go to Dark City Games. They have a forum over there, and the developer is really, really good at listening to feedback. So I'm sure they would be happy for you to go over there and leave feedback on anything that you might find. So let's keep going here. We do have a terrain chart here. So we have a terrain chart here, like in Guadalcanal. Overall, I think they've listened to some of the feedback and have made some positive improvements. Now, I will mention, and now let me get the map out here again for a second. So there's still some disconnect between what's described in the rulebook and the map itself. So here you'll see that elevation lines are red, and in the example over here, you can see those elevation lines are red. But if you go to the map, and we'll pull it out here for a second to take a look, well, the elevation lines are not red on the map. They are actually these brown lines, these darker brown lines. So there still seems to be some disconnect on getting the map in sync with the rule book. Now, it's not a game killer. It's just something that just needs to be looked at. Same thing with road. In the book, this terrain chart will show that the road is this lighter colored road. And if you look at the map again, you'll see that this is the road, I believe. And I say I believe because when we get to the scenarios, I'm going to point out that the roads are in fact described as being black lines on the map. And there's no black line on the map. I'm pretty sure that's the road, though. That's my best guess. And like I said, this may be that I just have the preview copy, and maybe the final copy will have the correct colors. I don't really know. I'm just pointing out what I see. Again, kind of minor. It's not that important, but again, you can see here the road is definitely this. It's not black. It's this lighter colored line, and these elevation lines are red. And also another thing is the elevation lines in the examples, they'll actually give you the elevation. Like here you can see 10, the next elevation is 20, then the next one up is 30. That's also not on the map. That's only in these examples. It'd be kind of nice to see that on the map, but we don't. So, all right, let's keep going here. So we've got transports again. A unit can be transported by a transport vehicle, an armored vehicle, or even, if you look here, even a tank. So it's got a rule for infantry. Riding on tanks, they are exposed and have a survivability rating of only 1 while riding on a tank. So that's kind of neat. Line of sight's the same as before. Elevations are the same. Now this is new, the range bands, the firing range, and I thought this was really cool. This is a really neat thing. So this simulates units at a greater range coming onto the battlefield, because the Germans, in the example, it points this out too, but yeah, the Flak 88. So the Germans had the Flak 88, which had very long range. So it could actually take shots at these Commonwealth tanks coming in from great distances. And it's shown in the game through these range bands. Really neat. So you could have your tanks coming in from the distance. Say you have this tank on band 4 here. A unit that only has, and the way that this would work is if a unit has an underline under the range, then they're able to shoot into certain range bands. So like this Pack 36 has a 1 with an underline under it. That means he can fire within the same range band. And I'll show you this on the map when we pull it out again, but basically the band 1 is the entire map. And then there's bands 2, 3, and 4 are just that. They're just bands. And so this Pack 36 can only fire on units in this first range band. The Flak 88 has a 4 with an underliner. That means the Flak 88 can fire anywhere on range band 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So this Flak 88 can take shots at tanks coming in that are way out on the horizon or way out on the distance coming in. So that's really neat. I like the way this was done. Highly recommend you check this out because it's really cool. So that's the range bands. Fire, it really hasn't changed much since from our look at Guadalcanal. You still have rally rules, kill rules. It's exactly the same. And there's some examples. Again, the examples are very good. I like the examples of play. We have some definitions. You have stacked units and some more examples about that. The opportunity fire, if you'll recall, a unit can move, and when it moves, and this is so if player A is the active player and he's moving from this hex to this B hex, even though he's the active player, this enemy can take following fire. He can actually fire on the active player as he's moving, and it's multiple times. So he can fire as this unit is moving towards him, which is really kind of cool. And that's the same, I believe, as Guadalcanal. So really not much change there. The same hex combat and the hand-to-hand. That's all the same as Guadalcanal. Again, I'm just kind of skimming through the rulebook here. We have infantry attacking armor, tank overruns. This is tanks running into infantry. Artillery, again, all pretty much the same. You have your spotting, and then you do your fire for effect, and your targets get hit in the hex where you actually target it, and these 6 surrounding hexes for the capital H artillery. Yeah, here we go, offboard H artillery type. There's a small H that some of the armored units have. That's a little bit different. That's only it's not this big 7 hex. It's just the single hex for the smaller H's. You have airstrikes again. I will point out that where's the counter sheet? So I will point out that you do have airstrike rules again, but there's only one counter for a Stuka here. It looks like I don't see any aircraft for the Commonwealth player. So while there's rules for this, I don't think you'll see any air combat in this particular game. Although it's always nice to have that, because I think The designer does mention that these modules were kind of intended to mix and match, if you will. So there could be future modules where you might be able to bring back in some aircraft into this game. But it's nice to have. You have the whole rules section here on that if you need to get to it. And then you get right into the scenarios. Again, it's the same thing as Guadalcanal. It will tell you, you do have a solitaire play section that will tell you kind of how the side that you're not playing, it'll tell you how you should play that side. And then you get into the scenarios, and there are 7 scenarios. I counted those up. So there are 7 scenarios. Again, you get the really neat history, you get the aftermath, the orders of battles, and really neat stuff. And again, you get designer notes. Not as many this time, but we do get some designer notes, and you get the glossary. So let's see, some things I found in the rule book. A much better job, I think, this time with the rule book. I don't. It's well written. There's a couple of little things that are that I found that were kind of confusing, but overall, excellent job with the rule book. So for confusing things, where's my notes? I did make a couple of notes here. Just wanted to point out. So. And it's like I said, this is nitpicky stuff. I don't know, but we're on page 2 here, and this is just as we're coming into the game, and there's a description here of moving from lower elevations to higher elevations. Now, the first time I looked at this, it's a little confusing because you go through the example, and I couldn't quite get the numbers to add up because I don't know why. And I figured out why, and it's because if you go over to page, I think it's the next page. Yeah, so if you go to the next page where they actually talk about elevation, there's an important sentence here, and it says, assume units are at the highest elevation in the hex. That would have been good to know up here prior to going through this example, because with that in mind, that this unit, you can see this elevation line runs through his hex. I was thinking that this rifle unit was actually ground level. He wasn't at elevation 10. If you assume that he's at the highest level in the hex, well, this elevation line runs through that hex, so he's really at elevation 10. And as he progresses through into here, he's at the highest elevation here, which is 20. That was a little more obvious. When he's in this hex where the double lines are, he's assumed to be at 30. So that was a little confusing, kind of a little nitpicky, because like I said, it is there, but it's just it comes after, it comes after where you really kind of need to know that. Yeah, this is another kind of a little nitpicky thing I found in the examples again, and going through this artillery fire, and this is off board artillery. They give an example. It all makes complete sense as you're reading through this example, that your round lands here and you're going to hit the 6 surrounding hexes. But when it gets down to where you're starting to go through the example, the first bullet says the fire mission attacks target B at 3-2 parentheses armor. Well, what that means is B is here, so you're gonna this artillery barrage will attack this unit first, and if you read, it's an H4, so really the attack should be 4. And if you look at the other examples that are actually in the range, it says you roll 4 dice. And here, it would have been nice. It does have armor, and so the deal here is these types of attacks. And it's back here on page 2 again. So up here on H, an artillery barrage attacks every unit in the target hex and every unit in all 6 surrounding hexes. And then it's the sentence again, firepower is -1 against armor. So I kind of would like to see that repeated here again. It does say armor, but that's kind of vague because that is an armor unit. So is it just saying, it's an armor unit? I kind of got confused. I'd like to see that say, that it attacks this armor unit B with only 3d6 because it is an armor unit, and refer back to that rule where armor units it's a -1 to armor units when you conduct this type of operation. So again, maybe it's nitpicky, I don't know. And then what else? What else? So here's another one that on page, I think this is page 8 again. No, this is page 2 again. So they talk about armor units, and it says that armor units are immune to small arms fire, which, okay, that makes sense. And these rifle units would be small arms fire. So it just says they're immune here. But if you continue on and you read, you get to page 8 again, and you have this section, infantry attacking armor. Well, so there is a case where you can attack armor with infantry, so not really quite totally immune. And I think what probably should have been here is, where it says armor units are immune to small arms fire, there should be a parenthesis that says exception, refer to page 8, infantry attacking armor. So just kind of thing I would like to see there. It's not a huge deal, but just little details like that makes it a little bit easier to understand what's going on without having to flip back and forth. Okay, and then so the scenarios. Where's my scenario notes? They're here. So we mentioned range bands. I only found, I think, one scenario where you're actually going to use those range bands, which is a shame because, like I said, it's really kind of neat. And I think it's this this June 15 Halfaya Pass. Yeah, it is. So here is, it says when you do the map, and it's something else I want to get into here too. A much better job with the scenarios and how the map is described. So a lot better job that you have, when you go into a scenario and you see map first, much better detail on what the map means and what the elevation lines and what the basically what you're gonna use and ignore when you use this map for the scenario. It'll tell you what part of the map you're going to use, the entire map or maybe just a portion of the map. So really good job with describing what's going on and where your units are going to go for the most part. So good job there. And then the solitaire, they added this solitaire section that goes into a little more detail into how the side is going to play in a solitaire match. So really good job with that. And then this is new too, this play balance thing. So if the scenario, you find the scenario too easy, too hard, this play balance section tells you what you can do to change the scenario up a little bit. And they do that by telling you in the setup here, you can see these parentheses units. These are optional units that you would add if you wanted to change the balance of the scenario. So that's really cool to see too. I'm glad to see that. I mentioned starting locations. I did find a scenario where there were no starting locations mentioned, and that was in this. That was in this one. The CD Suleiman. I think that might be a typo. But so here they tell you the map information, and it says British forces advance on German forces to the west, but there's no setup information for the Commonwealth or the Axis. So not really sure what to do with this one, but like I said, this is just the preview copy. Hopefully this has been updated since I've received this, but that's the only one I found this to be the case in, where there was really no specific setup information for either side. And then one other thing I will point out, again, I mentioned this in Guadalcanal. There's a unit they call out to use this 25 pounder, and if you look at the counter sheet, the 25 pound, where is that 25 pounder? It's down here at the bottom again. So again, we have the 25 pounder, and again we have the asterisk and for range, and for movement we have 0. So I'm assuming that the asterisk is, I didn't see it. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure I didn't see it, but yeah, see, for range, I think the range here is unlimited. I'm assuming that. I don't really know. That should have been called out somewhere in here, in this section, but it wasn't again. And then the movement is 0. So I'm assuming that wherever you put this piece down before the scenario begins, it's going to stay there. Again, it really should say that either in the beginning of the book or actually under the scenario itself. But it didn't, so just something else to highlight there. What else? And then also, yeah, there's some units that I see on the counter sheet where I couldn't find them in the scenarios. An example, and I think maybe the only example was these Bedford trucks. I didn't really find where they would be used in here, kind of like that air unit. So be aware of that. You may not use all the units that you were given, but like I said, there could be scenarios that are coming up that you would. And I still have my notes here. I'm just flipping through. Yeah, so, okay, we've already talked about that. So for the scenarios, they did do an excellent job with adding some information that we didn't have before. So let's take a look at the map really quick. Let me see if I can get this on the screen here so we can all see it. So the map, like I said, it's the same as, well, almost the same as what we saw in Guadalcanal. Again, the colors, like the road here, I think that's the road. Colors are a little bit off. The elevation lines are off. But having said that, like I said, in the scenarios, much better job calling out where on the board your units will be and what these letters mean. So one of the scenarios, I read had the Commonwealth units coming in from this greater distance and having to come down this road and exit the map through D. And of course, you had the Germans trying to prevent that. So, and it'll tell you when you run a scenario, don't use elevation. If you're in the desert, say you've got a battle that's strictly in the open desert, you'll ignore the elevation lines entirely. So, really good job with scenarios describing what to do with the map for the most part. And again, like I said, I really think that the bands really add something unique to this game. It's really, really, really cool. Now, one thing I'll also say about the bands, the rulebook talks, mostly the sense I get is the rulebook is written from the perspective that you will have German forces somewhere on this side of the map with the Commonwealth troops coming in and the tanks coming in from this side of the map. I didn't see anything in the rules about, could it work the other way? I don't know that you'd ever have a situation where it would, but could, for instance, German units actually move from band 1 up into the higher bands? My guess is no, but that wasn't really stated in the rule book. But then again, maybe it's because it is possible. I don't really know. But I kind of gathered that really the range bands were more for units moving onto the map. Still a really cool concept. I think that's really neat. And a really, really just a unique way of trying to take into account the fact that you have, in this battle, you had those German Flak 88s did have incredible range. And so to show that on this small map like this, it's really a neat design to come up with this solution to where you have those tanks coming in and a German Flak 88 somewhere out here taking shots as it comes in. That's a really, really, really innovative thing to do, I think. So again, Dark City Games, I hope I see more of these come out. I think every time they come out with one, they're going to get better and better. I'm not going to go back into the size of this again. It is a small game, a folio game, but the advantages to that is it is small, it's portable, and you can take it anywhere, and it doesn't take long to play. So I think that's about it. I am not going, as you can see, I haven't I haven't cut the counters out yet. And again, the counter, it's this, it's hard cardstock paper, not hard paper, yeah, cardstock paper. Good, nice firm counters. So when you do cut them out, you're going to have some nice counters. I like the print on them. They look good. I think that's about it though. Look for this game to be coming out. And like I said, if you have any questions or feedback for the developer, please go to Dark City Games. They did mention that they were going to start a Facebook page, I think, as well. But yeah, they're more than eager to listen to any feedback on these things. And I have to admit that I'm always talking about how the Pacific Theater is really, I love the Pacific Theater. But honestly, if I had to choose between Guadalcanal or this game, I really think I would choose this game. Just because it has so much more, I think, going on in it than Guadalcanal did. And the range bands, I just think that's really cool. I just think this is it's a much improved rule set, counter sheet, and map than Guadalcanal. Not that Guadalcanal was bad. Go back and watch the video. That's also a very good game. I do recommend this game. Highly recommend it. I will try to do a playthrough. I'm kind of eager to do a playthrough actually because I would like to show you how these range bands work. So I will do that. This was mainly just to give you an introduction to, well, not an introduction. It's just a preview to this game from Dark City Games, Operation Battleaxe, that will be coming out shortly. There's the components. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed this first look at Operation Battleaxe. If you have any questions, comments, please let me know in the comments down below, or at Armchair Dragoons, or like I said, please go to Dark City Games and leave some feedback there. And also, as always, come back and check because I do plan to do a playthrough of this. I don't know if I'm going to do one with this set. I may wait until they actually release this and then do the playthrough so that we can make sure we're all looking at the same components. So yeah, that's probably what I'll do. So there you go. As always, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you back again.